The first gen 4Runner camper is here, and it's pretty weird. Let's talk about how it works, what makes this thing different, and how the install process goes. So if you're new to GoFast, everything from here up is the GoFast Camper, and it's replacing that factory cap that goes on these first gen 4Runners. So you've got a really burly, ultra lightweight truck cap with an integrated rooftop tent with a pass-through floor. So we'll go inside and show you how that all works. So what makes a GoFast camper is the modular floor between the upstairs and the downstairs here. So you've got a super comfortable 3-inch mattress and a panelized floor system that stashes up out of the way. So you basically have a hangout space in the full back of the truck here. This camper model that fits the 4Runner is the V2 Pro. And we've got a link in the description to a full walkthrough that goes in depth of all the V2 Pro features. But in this video, we're gonna cover the specifics around the V2 Pro that are designed for the first gen 4Runner. So we'll cover the 2 major size differences and mounting interface differences and show you in depth what that looks like. So the first gen 4Runner is obviously an older vehicle, and older vehicles are much smaller than like a new Tacoma. So what we did to accommodate that is we actually took 6 inches of width out of our camper. So our normal mid-size truck camper is 53 inches wide. This one is 47. And that gives you a 44 by 90 inch interior sleeping space. And that big square constant pass-through hole when all the cushions are out of the way, that results in a 44 by 44 inch opening. So this thing's narrower specifically to fit the body lines of the vehicle. And that gives you 2 major benefits. First off, a lot of people are using the 4Runners as a wheeling rig and fitting down tight trails. So we don't want to make this thing any wider than it needs to be, so you can basically still fit in the body lines of the vehicle. This thing sits super flush to the vehicle. The second thing is wind resistance. This guy has a almost 40-year-old 22RE 4-cylinder motor that made 90 horsepower from new. So if you have big flanges that are busting square on into the wind on the outside of this camper, so if this thing was wide and the side was wide, you'd be dragging so much more air that this thing would drive even slower than it does from stock. So by keeping it as low as possible to the roof, by keeping it narrower and keeping it inside the body lines, you still have plenty of power to get open over mountain passes. So the second big difference is this. So the 4Runner is an SUV, not a pickup truck. So on every truck camper that we make, there's usually a front wall. And on the 4Runner, obviously because it's got a back seat and it's pretty much a convertible SUV, we're able to make a constant pass through from inside the cab into the rear here, which is pretty sweet. That allows you to build this thing out like a little RV if you want to. A lot of people have done stuff like that in the past. Or if you just want to hang out space in the back with all the sides open, you're basically in your personal little cabana zone. This also fits with the factory roll cage back here. The owner of this truck, Matthias, just loves living a life of danger, so he hasn't installed it. So the next thing that we're going to show you is how this thing installs, and that'll give some insight into how we were able to remove the front wall of the camper and how this whole thing all seals up just like that factory cap. So on the install side of things, Toyota did not make this design very easy because the factory top attaches to this kind of radius surface. So what we were able to do is create our own new datum mounting interface. So this sheet metal part right here is actually part of our camper system. So behind this piece right here, we actually run a bulb seal that wraps all the way around the perimeter and bolts into the factory locations that the fiberglass cap mounts to. That gives us a new plane to mount the camper to. So what we do is run a bulb seal on the backside here, run an adhesive around the perimeter, and then we have another bulb seal up top that mates into the camper interface, and then basically seam seal this entire thing with a Sikaflex, which is like a window adhesive for how they glue the car window into your car. So it gives you a structural adhesive sealant. And this bulkhead panel is structural and actually physically bolts into the camper as well. So that's what keeps the camper from racking side to side. And this structural sheet metal panel is basically the bracket that enables us to remove the normal front wall of the camper. So for the installation process here, you've got the camper that now ties into the sheet metal bracket. So come back like another 3 inches. Perfect. So this camper is going to lower down right here That overhang is going to seal to this cab right here. This actually is going to bolt up into the camper, and then these rails are going to come down and sit like a normal camper does from GoFast. So we put a bulb seal down the whole length of the bedside here, and we've got 5 factory bolt hole locations. So this guy's just going to like literally lower right down onto it, and we'll bolt it into these factory holes. So the mounting interface is really simple. We don't have to drill any new holes on the camper. We're not irreparably modifying the 4Runner. So if for some reason you ever wanted to return it to stock, you totally could. So we do have a few FAQs since announcing the 4Runner camper. So I'll go through those one at a time here. So first question is, how much does this thing weigh? So this camper weighs about 240 pounds, which is about 60 pounds more than the factory fiberglass shell. So it's super lightweight. Can the panels be removable? So the side and the rear panels. Yes, they can, and we'll insert a time lapse of Matthias taking them off. So a little bit of effort required, but they can be removed so you can go drive around and wheel with no side panels on the truck. Third thing is sealing and waterproofing. Yes, this thing does seal and waterproof, but a lot of that sealing is going to be a function of how well you do this install process, because we have to basically seam seal that integration that goes from the sheet metal parts into the truck itself. These are 4-year-old trucks, so you got to do a really good job to make sure it seals well. The third thing is, does my rear window on the tailgate still work? And the answer to that is no. The tailgate panel that comes down and covers it basically keeps that front window from sliding up. So that rear tailgate window that's factory on the 4Runner is no longer operable. So that covers all the details on the first gen 4Runner camper. So if you want us to do this for an OBS Bronco, a K5 Blazer, a Jeep, maybe a new Bronco, hit us up in the comments. If you have other questions that we didn't answer in this video, please let us know. This is one of the coolest campers we've ever made on probably one of the better trucks that have ever come out of GoFast campers. So we're super stoked on it. But let us know in the comments if you have any questions. Otherwise, we'll see you out there.